He thought things were going well, and then, without warning, they weren't. She didn't say anything changed. She didn't explain. She just became slightly harder to reach, slightly cooler, slightly less there, and he spent the next 2 weeks trying to figure out what he did wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. He failed a test he didn't know he was taking. Every woman tests the man she's interested in, not because she's manipulative, not because she's cruel, not because she read it in a magazine, because she has to. She cannot see inside you. She cannot know from a conversation or a date or 3 months of good behavior whether the man in front of her is actually who he appears to be, or whether he's a performance that will collapse the moment she stops applauding. So she tests. Today I'm going to walk you through exactly how this works, not so you can manipulate the process, but so you can stop failing tests you didn't know you were taking. A test is not a trap. A test is not a game. A test is information gathering under conditions that reveals something real. When a woman tests a man at the beginning of a relationship, she is not trying to catch him out. She is trying to answer one question. Is this man actually who he appears to be when there's no pressure? Because anyone can be charming on a first date. Anyone can be attentive when things are going well. The real character of a person only becomes visible when something goes slightly wrong. When there's friction, when there's uncertainty, when the easy path and the right path are not the same thing. That is what a test creates, a small, low-stakes situation where your real character shows up, whether you intended it to or not. Here's the important part. She is not always doing this consciously. Often she doesn't know she's testing you. She's operating on instinct, the same instinct that has kept humans alive for thousands of years, by correctly identifying who is trustworthy and who is performing trust. Your job is not to pass the test. Your job is to be the kind of man who passes it naturally. There is a difference, and that difference is everything. Women test men in 4 specific ways at the beginning of a relationship. Each one is measuring something different. Test 1. The boundary test. This is the most common and the most misunderstood. Picture this. You've been seeing each other for 3 weeks. You made plans for Saturday. On Friday evening, she texts, "Something came up, can we move it to Sunday?" No explanation, no apology. The failing response is one of 2 things. Either you collapse, of course, no problem at all, whatever works for you, and you spend Saturday checking your phone every 20 minutes, or you overreact. This is the second time you've done this, what's going on? And now it's a confrontation about a canceled evening. Both responses fail for the same reason. Both reveal that your behavior is controlled by her behavior, that you have no stable internal reference point, that you are either a mirror or a smoke detector. The passing response is simple. Sure, Sunday works. And then you actually do something with your Saturday, not to prove a point, because you have a life. She doesn't need you to punish her for canceling. She doesn't need you to pretend it's fine when it isn't. She needs you to be exactly the same person on Saturday that you were on Thursday. Unchanged. That is what she's measuring, whether you have a self that stays intact when someone applies pressure to it. Test 2, the attention test. She becomes slightly less available. She takes longer to respond. She gives you a version of herself that is lower energy, less engaged, less warm. Most men react by pursuing harder, by checking in more, by increasing their investment to compensate for her decreasing investment. When a man pursues harder in response to distance, he communicates one thing very clearly. I need your attention to feel okay. That is not a foundation. That is a liability. The correct response is to match her energy, not chase it. She's not pulling away because she's losing interest. She's pulling away to see if you'll maintain your center when she does. Test 3, the opinion test. She suggests a restaurant that isn't your first choice. She takes a position on something to see what you do. She tests a preference, a plan, a decision to see if you'll agree automatically. Most men agree, because agreement feels like harmony, because disagreement feels risky, because somewhere they learned that the easiest way to keep a woman happy is to give her what she wants. A man without opinions is not a man who agrees with everything. He is a man who is not there. The correct response is to have an actual opinion, not to argue, not to be difficult, but to have a genuine preference and express it clearly without apology. She's not looking for a man who agrees with her. She's looking for a man she has to reckon with. Test 4. The reaction test. Something goes slightly wrong. Plans change unexpectedly. A small conflict appears from nowhere. She watches how you handle it. Do you catastrophize? Do you become cold? Do you make the small thing large? Or do you absorb the friction without amplifying it? Handle the problem without making the problem about you, and return to baseline quickly. What she's measuring here is emotional regulation, not the absence of feeling, the ability to feel something and not be controlled by it. A man who can't handle small friction cannot handle real difficulty. And real difficulty is coming. It always is. There is one underlying mistake that causes a man to fail all 4 of these tests consistently. He is trying to pass them. Here's what that looks like in practice. She becomes distant. He opens his phone, searches what to do when she pulls away, reads 3 articles, and decides that the correct move is to give her space. So he gives her space, not because he has other things in his life, but because he calculated that giving space is the right answer. He's performing space, and she can feel the performance. She pushes back on his opinion. He remembers that he's supposed to hold his position, so he holds it, not because he genuinely believes what he's saying, but because he read that agreeing too fast is a red flag. He's performing conviction, and she can feel that too. The moment a man is thinking about how to respond correctly, calculating the right answer, managing his output to produce the desired result, he has already lost. Because tests measure authenticity, and authenticity cannot be performed. It can only be present or absent. The man who passes these tests naturally is not the man who studied the correct answers. He is the man who built a life, developed a self, found a direction, and is now simply living it, with or without her watching. When she pulls back, he doesn't pursue harder. Not because he calculated that pursuing would be wrong, but because he actually has other things in his life that require his attention. When she pushes, he doesn't collapse, not because he rehearsed holding his position, but because his position is genuinely his and doesn't require defense, just maintenance. When she tests his opinion, he has one, not because he prepared an opinion in advance, but because he's a person who has thought about things and knows what he thinks. This is what passing looks like from the inside. It doesn't feel like strategy, it feels like being exactly who you are. Here are the 3 things that make a man naturally pass the tests he encounters. 1. He knows what he wants, not from her, from life. He has a direction, a purpose, a set of things that matter to him beyond the relationship. A man who knows what he wants has opinions, has standards, has responses that come from somewhere real. He doesn't need to calculate how to react, because his reactions come from his actual values. 2. He has regulated his relationship with uncertainty. The tests all create uncertainty. She pulls back, she pushes, she tests to see how he handles not knowing. The man who has practiced being comfortable with uncertainty doesn't get destabilized by these moments. He reads them accurately, he responds proportionately, he returns to baseline quickly. This is not indifference. This is emotional maturity, and it is one of the rarest and most attractive things a man can possess. 3. He has stopped making her the center of gravity of his inner life. This is the root of almost every failed test. When a man is orbiting a woman, when her mood, her attention, her approval is what his inner life revolves around, every test becomes a crisis. Every moment of distance feels like loss. Every push feels like rejection. The man who has a center, whose life has its own gravity, its own pull, its own sources of meaning, doesn't feel the tests as threats. He feels them as information, and he responds to information calmly. She's not testing you because she's difficult. She's testing you because she's been let down before, because the man who seemed solid turned out to be performing solidity, because she learned at some cost that what a person shows you early is not always what a person is. The tests are not the enemy. The tests are the filter. Think about an audition. An actor walks in, reads the lines, hits every mark, gets the part, and then, 3 weeks into filming, falls apart. Because what the audition measured was preparation, not capability. The director got a performance, not a person. That is what most men give women at the beginning of a relationship, a very well-prepared audition. And that is exactly what the tests are designed to see through. The man who passes them is not the man who prepared the right answers. He is the man who wasn't auditioning at all, who walked in as himself, complete, grounded, genuinely there, and let that be enough. You cannot fake that. You can only be it. She's not looking for the best performance. She's looking for the real thing. Become the real thing. Everything else takes care of itself.